Did you know that the USO, short for United Service Organizations, was founded on February 4, 1941? It all started when Mary Ingram responded to a request from President Franklin D. Roosevelt to boost the morale of U.S. military personnel by providing them with recreational and morale services. The USO was building clubs and carters worldwide, often referred to as a home away from home for GIs, provided various amenities such as dances, social events, movies, music, and a quiet spot to write letters or have a conversation. Service members could even enjoy a free cup of coffee and an egg. One of the USO's notable contributions was bringing Hollywood celebrities and volunteer entertainers to perform for the troops. You know what? I had a soft spot for that old geezer, Mr. Jimmy Burns. The guy had guts, and I'm not just talking about his age. He had the audacity to lay down the facts in the most upfront way possible. Us Raiders, who survived the war and attended his show, will forever remember him. But let me tell you, those USO shows weren't exactly morale-boosting masterpieces. Nope. They were more like a recipe for comedy catastrophe. Picture this, the USO sends their shows all the way to the South Pacific, thinking they'll make our servicemen happier than clams. But oh boy, did they miss the mark? In Europe, where civilization was just a hop, skip, and a jump away, those shows were about as useful as a snorkel in a desert. However, in the untamed jungles of the Pacific, they were like a tropical storm of disappointment. Those entertainers and the folks back home who watched them on their fancy news reports really thought we were tickled pink. Little did they know, it was a different story altogether. You see, after all the hoopla of bad jokes and wolf whistles at scantily clad girls, hey, we're only human, a dark cloud of depression settled over the camp for days. And let's not even talk about the sleepless nights. Those shows only made us realize what we were missing out on, and fate wasn't exactly handing out rain checks. It was like a cosmic joke, rubbing salt in our wounds. Thanks a bunch, USO! Can you imagine the ego boost those USO entertainers must have gotten? They probably thought they were spreading happiness and joy like a contagious disease. Meanwhile, they hopped on planes, flew back home, and continued their own dangerous battles to protect their fame, fortune, and sanity. Oh, the irony! Cheers to Mr. Burns, the old man with the courage to speak his mind. And as for those USO shows, well, they were about as effective as a rubber chicken in a war zone. But hey, at least we got some laughs, even if they came with a side effect of melancholy. Guadalcanal, or as we called it, the Canal. It was the first Japanese-occupied island in the Solomon chain to be snatched back by the mighty American forces. But let me tell you, we paid a hefty toll in lives and injuries. It's like nature played a cruel joke, making something so darn beautiful the backdrop for so much sorrow. Talk about paradise gone wrong! We arrived fashionably late to the party, just after the bloody battle had come to an end. And let me tell you, the island was a sight to behold, and not in a good way. Everywhere you looked, there were reminders of the chaos that had unfolded. Japanese and American equipment lay scattered about like a giant game of who can destroy more stuff. Even the coconut groves, stretching for miles, resembled a lineup of poles, with their tops blown off in the quest to sniff out those sneaky snipers. And don't get me started on the beaches. They were a playground of mangled landing craft and oversized Japanese ships. Some ships were so eager to catch some rays that they were practically sunbathing, half in and half out of the water, with their pointy bows sticking up like stubborn divers. By the way, I couldn't resist the temptation to play underwater explorer and search for hidden treasures in these half-submerged behemoths. Who knows what kind of souvenirs I might stumble upon? Base camp near the Red Beach, with Savo, Tulagi, and Florida Islands keeping us company. Savo was practically our neighbor, just 3 miles offshore. Tulagi and Florida, on the other hand, were like distant relatives, about 20 miles away. We were in for a treat because this whole area was famously known as Iron Bottom Sound. And no, it's not a heavy metal band's new album title, but rather a nickname inspired by the plethora of sunken ships resting beneath its waters. Even the aircraft carrier Wasp decided to take a nap just off the coast of Savo, with its plane still chilling on the flight deck, refusing to take off. Talk about commitment to a beachfront vacation. Little did I know, I had narrowly missed seeing my cousin Bob's ship, the Chicago, meet its watery grave in that same area. Thankfully, Bob survived to tell me all about it a year later when he returned to Guadalcanal with the 5th Marine Division. Family reunions are always such cheerful affairs, aren't they? Now, here's a story that will make you hold your nose and crinkle your face. Picture this: we're setting up camp, minding our own business, when some of the guys digging a latrine stumbled upon what seemed like a rotting flesh grave. Naturally, our ever-so-wise officers investigated the matter and came up with the grand conclusion that it was a burial ground for deceased animals from the battle. Yeah, right. We weren't buying that explanation, especially not the poor souls who had to dig up the mess and had to cover up again. I can't speak for everyone, but that incident left me once again questioning the whole war business, left so much to be desired. We were winning the cause, but also undesired as our casualties were countless, including the animals. The joys of tropical paradise. Just when I thought life couldn't get any better, I found myself in a loving embrace with malaria. Turns out, those atabrine tablets I religiously swallowed every day couldn't prevent the disease, they were merely like seasoning to control its severity. Malaria, brought to you by the lovely female mosquitoes, is quite the unpredictable party crasher. 1 minute you're feeling fabulous, and the next you're shivering like an ice cube or burning up like a volcano. While most folks blamed Guadalcanal for their malaria, I had my suspicions that I caught mine in the Hebrides. You see, it takes a little time before this uninvited guest shows up. Malaria can be a real killer, but mostly it enjoys knocking the stuffing out of you, leaving you weak and disoriented like a lost puppy. Luckily, malaria was the only souvenir I brought back from the South Pacific. Some of the guys, poor fellas, ended up with elephantiasis, or as we called it, moo-moo, which turns limbs into balloon animals. Imagine having testicles larger than your entire body, enough to rival a cow's moo. So there you have it, a wild ride through Guadalcanal, where ships rest beneath the waves, animals have peculiar burial grounds, and mosquitoes throw the party of the century. War certainly knows how to keep life interesting, undesired diseases and all. But seriously, Guadalcanal was a mixed bag of beauty and destruction. It's like Mother Nature herself had a wicked sense of humor. Despite the hardships and the remnants of battle, we soldiered on, finding solace in the absurdity of it all. Such a gorgeous island, Guadalcanal. Among all the stunning pieces of paradise I encountered during my Pacific adventure, you held a special place in my heart. Those days of anticipation, waiting for action, were filled with delightful pursuits of our choosing. And me? I was all about the leisurely life. Reading, swimming, strolling along those pristine white beaches, and indulging in epic daydreams. And when the sun set, the beach became our playground. A merry band of friends would gather around a crackling bonfire, shooting the breeze and basking in the lively company of Solomon native men, who would always gravitate toward us, hoping for a smoke or two. Hey, who can resist the allure of our cigarettes? It wasn't long before a bunch of these cheeky little brown-skinned fellas made their way down from their mountain village and settled near us. After realizing they were harmless and not like those cannibals in the Hebrides, thank goodness, we embraced their presence. Some of our guys even hired them as personal valets, giving them the noble task of laundry and tent tidying. In exchange, these lucky helpers were rewarded with cigarettes, canned goodies, and poggy bait, candies. The currency of happiness. Every now and then, a native group would pass through our area, and we couldn't help but chuckle at their peculiar concern. You see, these folks had an aversion to stopping if there were females among them. We found it hilarious because, truth be told, the women looked just like the men, except for their long, flapping breasts that reached their waist. Oh, the wonders of nature's diversity! I mean, if beauty is truly in the eye of the beholder, these poor souls must have acquired a taste for unconventional charm. It just goes to show, as my buddy Eddie Ross once wisely said, "Jim, there's hardly a woman out there, walking or crawling, that some fool won't go crazy over." So tread carefully, my friend. Guadalcanal, you provided us with endless entertainment and unexpected encounters. The island where dreams and laughter intertwined, where native valets earned their sweet rewards, and where beauty took on unique forms. It's moments like these that remind us to embrace the absurdity of life. The joys of staying physically and mentally sharp through long hikes and maneuvers. There was one particular skirmish that forever etched itself into my memory, and boy, was it a bizarre happening. Picture this. We're wrapping up a field exercise, and I'm casually squatting on my heels, observing my buddy, Sergeant John Novak, as he fires away with a .30 caliber air-cooled machine gun. Now, John, bless his heart, had a striking resemblance to none other than the actor William Bendix, with his build, voice, and that charmingly crooked nose. When the order to stop firing rang out, John swiftly secured the gun. But here's where things took a wild turn. For some inexplicable reason that remains a mystery to this day, his assistant, in a moment of absent-mindedness, grabbed the front tripod leg and swung the gun around, inadvertently pointing it directly at me. And guess what? In that very instant, a live round, forgotten in the hot chamber, decides to make a surprise appearance. You can imagine the sheer shock that washed over me as I stared into the barrel, smoke swirling, aiming right at my chest. Talk about a close shave! In that split second, my strength vanished, leaving me as limp as a wet noodle. They say you don't feel the bullet that kills you, but I wasn't feeling a thing. Numbness engulfed me from head to toe. Meanwhile, poor John, overcome with panic, was attempting to lift me off my heels, but his hysteria rendered him as effective as a squirrel trying to operate a bulldozer. And let me tell you, he was crying and praying up a storm, giving it his all. There I was, squatting quietly in a state of near blankness, while John desperately tried to assist me. But alas, I was utterly uncooperative, powerless to do anything. Finally, he gently rolled me backward onto the ground and began the painstaking task of removing my equipment and clothing. As I lay there, motionless, gazing up at the brilliant blue sky, I could feel the splash of John's tears as he searched my entire body. After what felt like an eternity, I heard him utter in disbelief, "Nobi, I can't find anything." I could barely muster a response, but managed to whisper, "Are you sure?" And he replied, "Yes," backed up by the chorus of other guys who had formed a circle around me. Now, let me tell you, as unbelievable as it sounded, I couldn't fully wrap my head around the fact that I emerged unscathed. With their help, I eventually regained my footing, albeit with some assistance. And let me tell you, I needed John's enthusiastic support to get dressed and make it back to camp. This mind-boggling experience not only earned me a true friend in John but also offered a glimpse into my own fatalistic attitude towards death. It was a moment of self-discovery that would later prove invaluable amidst the cacophony of agonizing screams from others. You see, John, being a devout Catholic, firmly believed his prayers had worked a miracle and saved my sorry hide. Understanding his need to find solace in something greater, I chose not to debate the point, knowing full well that prayers alone couldn't alter the immutable decrees of the universe. God doesn't play favorites or whimsically meddle with fate. To think otherwise is pure vanity and unreasonable expectation. A few days later, as fate would have it, another training exercise was on the horizon. And guess what? Yours truly was ordered to remain behind as the camp guard. Now, I couldn't help but wonder if my near-death experience on the previous trip had anything to do with this sudden change of plans. Let's just say I had a hunch. Word spread like wildfire, and soon enough, guys I barely knew were calling me lucky and eagerly touching my flesh. Ah, the perks of a close encounter with the great beyond. That afternoon, when the rest of the outfit returned, they regaled me with a tale of a mortar shell gone awry. Faulty manufactured increments, they said. The darn thing landed smack dab in the middle of a group of unsuspecting guys, claiming 2 lives on the spot and leaving 4 others wounded. That evening, the mournful sound of taps filled the air, paying tribute to our fallen comrades. It was my first encounter with death in a military context, and without witnessing the gory aftermath, it was hard to swallow the fact that these guys were gone forever. Life sure has its share of heart-stopping moments and inexplicable twists. We dodge bullets one day and stand guard the next, always aware of the fragility of our existence. And in those moments of reflection, we can't help but cherish the absurdity, finding solace in the camaraderie and the shared stories that make up our own unique tapestry of experiences.
Thanks for watching. Please consider subscribing to the channel and like the video.